A Japan Airlines flight caught fire on the runway of Tokyo's Haneda airport after a collision with a coastguard plane. Joining me live now is CNN reporter Richard Quest. Richard, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us how the situation unfolded at Tokyo airport where two planes collided?
It was at the second airport of Haneda, and what we have is an A350, which was just completing a domestic flight for Japan Air. And as it comes into land, and the pictures show quite graphically, it hits the Dash 8 of the Coast Guard. On board the Dash 8, 5 of the 6 were killed, with the sixth is one of the pilots, and we're still waiting for further details. But clearly, the big issue is, why were those two planes on the same runway at the same time? Either because of air traffic control giving an instruction, or pilots misunderstanding, one or other pilots not being able to see each other because it was nighttime visibility. So those are the sort of issues that are the proximate cause. But then you get to the miracle, in a sense, because everything happened in terms of the A350. This would have been described as a survivable accident. You have the plane on fire, barreling down the runway, but when it stops, under the rules, there's supposed to be 90 seconds to get everybody off board, to evacuate the whole aircraft in 90 seconds, and that's what they did. Even with half the doors inoperable, they were told, don't use the back doors, use the front doors of the aircraft. And yep, I mean, this is one of those cases that a dreadful thing happens at one end of the runway and a miracle happens at the other end, exactly as it's supposed to. They evacuate the plane.
It's incredible looking at the pictures that we have been playing about how all the passengers and the crew survived on that JAL flight. How do crew train for such evacuations? You were talking about how they just executed it in 90 seconds and it was a miracle that they did so.
Yeah, I've done several of these evacuations on planes in training. The first thing is to make sure no idiot decides to try and take their overhead locker and their hand luggage with them. That's always a big problem. Go back to British Air Tours in British Midlands, in Britain. People were taking things off the aircraft with them. The second is the crew themselves. They get the doors open and they literally scream, get off, come forward, get off. And they create not a panic atmosphere, but an urgency. And people just come up. And believe me, there's nothing more pressing and nothing more likely to make you move forward and fast than a burning plane. What you have to guard against is people climbing over each other. And that's why you do need to remember, listen guys, how often have you not listened to the announcement before you take off because I'm too cool for safety announcements? Well, all right, I've heard more than most, but I still take that second or two to work out, where is my nearest exit? If I have to 1, 2, 3, 4 rows behind or 3 rows forward. Why? Because I don't want to have to be working that out in an emergency.
Yeah, exactly. Richard Quest, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.